The metal box makes a sound when she sets it on the counter. Not loud, just the soft knock of old wood on older laminate, the kind of sound a diner makes at 6 in the morning when the world outside is still blue-gray and the first truck hasn't pulled into the lot yet. Dorothy sets it there between the sugar dispenser and the napkin holder and doesn't look at it again. She ties her apron strings behind her back, the same double knot she's tied every morning for 11 years, and she goes to start the coffee. The box is the size of a paperback novel, navy blue, brass latch that sticks a little in cold weather. She brought it in this morning for the first time, 11 years, and this is the first time that box has crossed the threshold of May's diner. There's a reason she chose today. Outside, the flag by the VFW hall is already at half-mast. It's been there since Tuesday, and today is Friday, and Dorothy has looked at it through the diner's plate glass window every morning since Tuesday without saying a word about it to anyone. The regulars have noticed her looking. They haven't asked. That's the thing about small towns. They know when not to ask. Her name is Dorothy Jean Calloway. She is 63 years old. She has a granddaughter named Iris who just turned 7 and who believes sincerely and without doubt that her grandmother can fix anything. She is 5'4" on a good day. Her hair is white now, cut short and practical, and she wears no jewelry except for a single thin band of silver on her right hand, which she moves from finger to finger when she's thinking, a habit so old she doesn't know she does it. She pours coffee for herself before the first customers arrive. She sits at the end of the counter, not in a chair. She never sits in a chair during a shift, but on the edge of a stool, her weight balanced forward, her hands wrapped around the mug. The box is 2 feet to her left. She doesn't look at it. She's been waiting 41 years for today to feel like something she could carry in public. For 41 years it felt like a private wound, a thing you keep in a drawer underneath the winter sweaters. Maybe it still does. She'll find out. The diner fills slowly, the way it always does on a Friday. Mac, who drives the county road plow and tips $4 on a $6 breakfast, takes his corner booth. Old Reverend Cassius comes in for his oatmeal and his orange juice and his 10 minutes of quiet before the day makes demands. The Hendersons from the hardware store sit at the window table. Dorothy takes their orders, refills their cups, calls Mac by name, and asks about his knee, listens to Reverend Cassius hum 3 bars of something she doesn't recognize, and the morning begins to move. At 7:45, 3 military vehicles pull into the lot. Dorothy sees them first in the window reflection. She's pouring coffee and she watches the glass and keeps pouring, and the pot doesn't waver, and she sets it down on the burner and turns around. They file in through the door in their dress uniforms. 6 of them. Young faces mostly, mid-20s, a couple in their early 30s. And then the one in front, who is not young at all, but carries himself with the particular precision of a man who has decided that precision is a form of superiority. Captain's insignia. Navy. His name tag reads Harris. He has the jaw of a man who has been told he looks authoritative and has never stopped believing it. They take the big table in the back, the round one that seats 8, and Captain Harris sits with his back to the wall, which is the seat every person in that group should have wanted, and he takes it because the thought that anyone else might want it doesn't occur to him. Dorothy picks up her order pad and walks over. "Morning." She clicks her pen. "Coffee for everyone?" Captain Harris looks up at her. The look lasts 1 second too long. The kind of look that measures a person by their apron and finds the measurement satisfying. "Sure, sweetheart." He doesn't look away from the laminated menu when he says it. "And can you make it fast? We've got a ceremony at 0900. One of the younger officers, a lieutenant with red hair and careful eyes, shifts in his seat. His name tag reads Weston. He glances at Dorothy, and there's something in his face. Not recognition exactly, but the beginning of a question. He looks at the coffee cup she sets in front of him, and then at her right hand, where the silver band sits on her middle finger, and he looks away. Dorothy fills cups, She takes the food order. She comes back with the food in 12 minutes, which is fast for a full table, and she refills the coffee without being asked. Captain Harris has been talking since she left the table, loudly enough to be heard, which she understands is intentional. "The problem with this town," he's saying, "is they give out honors like participation trophies. You want to see real service? You talk to people who've actually been under fire." He cuts into his eggs. No offense to the locals. Nobody at the table says anything. "The ceremony today?" He takes a bite. "It's for a man who spent 8 months in a radio room. 8 months. He shakes his head, not diminishing it, but we talk about it like it's Fallujah. Mac, in his corner booth, looks up from his eggs. He looks at Dorothy. Dorothy is wiping down the counter near the register. Her cloth moves in small, even circles. She says nothing. She goes back to the kitchen to call in a refill on the pie. But here is the thing about Dorothy Jean Calloway that nobody in this diner knows. Not Mac, not Reverend Cassius, not the Hendersons who have been eating breakfast here for a decade. She knows what Fallujah smells like. She knows what it sounds like from the rooftop of a building where you have been stationary for 11 hours and your legs have stopped complaining because they've stopped feeling. She knows the specific quality of silence after a fire mission, how it rings in the ears and sits in the chest, and how you learn, slowly, to mistake that silence for peace. She knows these things because she was there. And before that, she was in Kandahar. And before that, she was in a place whose name is still classified in documents she will never see. The silver band moves to her index finger, then back to her middle finger. She doesn't notice. Weston notices. He's been watching her hands for 5 minutes, and now he looks at the counter to her left, where the navy blue box sits between the sugar dispenser and the napkin holder, and his red eyebrows come together in the smallest frown. He looks at the brass latch, the size, the age of the thing. Captain Harris is telling the table about a SEAL deployment he read about in a book. He's using the words correctly. He has the cadence down. The younger officers are nodding. Weston is looking at the box. Dorothy comes back to the table with more coffee. She refills Harris's cup first, then goes down the table. When she reaches Weston, he looks up at her. "Ma'am." His voice is quiet enough that Harris doesn't catch it over his own story. "Is there a memorial today? For someone you knew?" Dorothy looks at him for a moment. The cloth is in her left hand. The pot is in her right. She doesn't move either one. "An old teammate." The word comes out even, not heavy, not clipped, just the word it is. Weston's frown deepens. He opens his mouth and Harris's voice rises over whatever he was going to say. "More coffee, yeah. And listen." Harris leans back in his chair and addresses Dorothy directly, the way you address a piece of furniture that has become briefly interesting. "You live here all your life?" "Most of it." "You see a lot of veterans come through? For these things?" "Some." Harris nods, magnanimous. "It's good. What small communities do. The recognition. Even if the service doesn't always—" He pauses, selecting his words with the care of a man who knows he isn't being careful enough. "Match the ceremony." Mac has put down his fork. Reverend Cassius has folded his hands around his orange juice. Dorothy looks at Captain Harris for 3 full seconds. Then she writes something on her order pad, tears off the ticket, and places it on the table face down. "Whenever you're ready." She picks up the empty plates from the far end. Harris flips the ticket over. It's the breakfast total. He sets it down and goes back to his story. Weston picks up the ticket, looks at it. There's nothing written on the back except one word, just 2 letters inside a parenthesis. A designation, a shorthand. The kind of thing that gets attached to a person for reasons that don't get explained until you've earned enough clearance to understand the explanation. He reads it. He reads it again. He sets the ticket back down very carefully and looks at Dorothy walking toward the kitchen. He watches her untie her apron at the door, fold it once, set it on the peg. She comes back through without the apron and goes to the counter and picks up the navy blue box. She doesn't hurry. She moves like she always moves, which is slowly and without waste. She carries the box in both hands, not under one arm, both hands, the way you carry something that weighs more than its dimensions suggest. She walks to the register and sets the box on the shelf above it and faces the room. The room has gotten quiet in the way that rooms get quiet when several people have each separately noticed the same thing and are waiting to see what happens next. Harris is still talking. One of his junior officers, a young ensign in the corner chair, has leaned slightly to look at the box on the shelf and then back at Dorothy, and his face has done something that the ensign is trying very hard to keep neutral. Harris sets down his fork. "Something going on?" Weston says his name. Quietly. "Sir?" "What?" Weston slides the breakfast ticket across the table. Harris picks it up, reads it. "What's this mean?" "That's a call sign, sir." "Whose?" The room is completely quiet. Mac's coffee has gone cold and he doesn't care. Reverend Cassius's hands are still folded. Outside, a truck pulls into the lot but doesn't come in. Harris looks at Dorothy. "That's your call sign?" Dorothy lifts the latch on the navy blue box. It sticks, the way it always sticks in cold weather, and she works it with 2 fingers and it opens. She reaches inside and removes a single object and sets it on the counter with the same soft knock the box made when she first placed it there at 6 in the morning. A medallion on a ribbon, navy blue and gold. The specific configuration of metal and color that belongs to one citation and no other. Not many people in a room can identify it by sight, but every person in uniform at that back table has spent enough time around those who earned it to know exactly what it is. The Navy Cross. Second only to the Medal of Honor, awarded for extraordinary heroism in combat. The kind of extraordinary that happens in very specific darkness, where no cameras go and no headlines follow, where the paperwork comes later if it comes at all, and where the ribbon gets folded into a navy blue box and locked behind a brass latch that sticks in cold weather. Captain Harris does not move. Weston does. He stands up. Not a deliberate, ceremonial move. His body does it before his mind catches up, and when he's standing, he pulls himself fully upright, both heels together, his hands at his sides, and he looks at Dorothy straight. The ensign in the corner stands a half-second later, then the next one, then the next. Harris is the last one standing, and when he stands, it's because 6 men in uniform are already on their feet in a diner in a small town on a Friday morning. And the woman behind the counter has her hand resting on the ribbon of a Navy Cross, and the moment has made a shape that Captain Harris finds himself inside without knowing how he got there. Dorothy's hand rests lightly on the metal. She doesn't hold it up. She doesn't need to. Mac's voice comes from the corner booth, low and rough. "What outfit?" She turns slightly. "Dev Grew. Before it had the name it has now." The room breathes. Mac nods once, slowly, the way a man nods when something he suspected for a long time has just been confirmed. "Nightfall." Weston's voice is just above a whisper. He says it the way you say a word you've read many times in classified documents and never expected to say out loud in a room you were physically present in. "Your Nightfall." Dorothy looks at him. "What do you know about Nightfall?" His jaw tightens. "My uncle was with the teams in '01. He talked about a spotter, said she was the best he'd ever seen." He pauses. "He never told me her real name. He said she went back to being a regular person and that was that." The ribbon under Dorothy's hand is cool. It's always cool, the way metal holds cold. She brought it home in this box from a ceremony she attended alone, a closed ceremony. A room full of people who spoke in careful language and shook her hand and didn't make eye contact, because what she'd done was the kind of thing that makes people uncomfortable when they have to thank you for it directly. She had taken the box home and put it under the winter sweaters and told herself that the civilian life was its own kind of service, and that the two things didn't need to share a room. For 41 years, she'd believed that. Then the flag went to half-mast on Tuesday. For Tommy Reardon, her old team's communications lead, who died at 72 from a heart that had been working too hard since 1983 and finally quit on a Tuesday morning in a VA hospital 300 miles away. Tommy, who called her Dot, who never called her Nightfall except when the radio was on and it was necessary, who once sat beside her on a concrete floor in a dark building in a country she can't name publicly and said, "If we get out of this, I'm going to eat the worst pancakes I can find." He got out. She got out. He ate terrible pancakes at a truck stop outside of Raleigh the following Thursday and called her to report on their quality. She has not cried about Tommy yet. She doesn't know when she will. But she brought the box to the diner this morning because today was his service, and she wanted him to know, Tommy, wherever he is, in whatever frequency the dead receive, that she was done putting this away. That's the reason she chose today. Harris clears his throat. The sound is small in the quiet room. He looks at the metal and then at the floor and then back at the metal, and when he speaks, the authoritative cadence is gone. What's left is the real voice underneath, younger than the one he uses. "Ma'am, I said things this morning that—" He stops. Starts again. "I didn't know." Dorothy looks at him for a long moment. There is no anger in her face. There hasn't been anger in her face since she walked out of that ceremony 41 years ago and decided that the people who understood would understand and the people who didn't would need time. She has been patient. She has had 41 years of practice. "You didn't know." She straightens the ribbon with one finger, the same way she straightens the napkins at every table. "Most people don't." Harris opens his mouth. "Captain." Her voice has the quality of something shaped by long use, quiet and final and not unkind. There are people in every room who have done things you can't read in any book you've been given. Some of them are pouring your coffee. The ceiling fan turns. The refrigerator hums. Somewhere outside, a door closes. What you said about recognition not matching service. She picks up the Navy Cross. She places it back in the box. "I want you to think about why you said that. Not today, because today you're busy, but sometime, when you've got a minute." She closes the box. The brass latch catches on the first try. Weston exhales. The ensign in the corner, who has been standing at attention for 5 minutes in a diner, blinks. He has not been to combat. He has been in the Navy for 14 months. He comes from a small town not unlike this one, with a diner not unlike this one, and his grandmother waitresses at it 4 days a week. He is looking at Dorothy with an expression that will change the way he looks at every room he walks into for the rest of his career. Harris looks around the table at his officers. Then he looks at Dorothy. "Is there someone you're going to the ceremony for?" "Tommy Reardon. He was my teammate." She unties the apron strings behind her back and readies them, the same double knot. He would have hated all the fuss. He would have loved all the fuss. That was Tommy. Something passes across Harris's face. Not shame exactly. Something under shame, more honest than shame. The recognition that a man can fill a room with his voice for years and walk past the most important thing in it every morning. "Would you—" He stops, tries again. "Would it be appropriate for our group to attend, to pay respects?" Dorothy picks up the coffee pot. She looks at him for a beat. "The ceremony starts at 10 at the VFW hall. It's a public service." She tops off his cup, unhurried. "Tommy spent 30 years making sure people like you could talk about service without knowing what it cost. He would have wanted you there." She moves down the table and refills cups. She calls to Mac that she'll bring him a fresh pot. She exchanges a quiet word with Reverend Cassius, who has been watching all of this with the particular stillness of a man who has witnessed many things and knows which ones to carry. "That woman," the Reverend says very softly as Dorothy goes behind the counter. Has been pouring my coffee for 11 years. He shakes his head once, not with surprise, but with something closer to reverence. 11 years, he says again, and he takes a long sip from his orange juice, and outside the morning is getting brighter through the plate glass, and the flag at the VFW hall is still at half-mast, and it will remain there through the weekend. At 9:30, Dorothy unties her apron for the second time. She folds it twice, precisely, and lays it on the counter. She goes to the back and returns wearing a jacket the color of midnight blue that she brought in a bag this morning and hung behind the kitchen door. She has ironed it. The collar is straight. On the left breast pocket, just visible above the lapel, is a small pin. A trident, worn smooth. She picks up the navy blue box from the shelf above the register and tucks it under her arm. She does not say goodbye. That isn't the kind of place May's Diner is. She'll be back on Monday. She's at the door when Harris speaks. Nightfall. She turns. He's standing again. All of them are. The whole table. And he's not doing it because protocol demands it. He's doing it because he has finally this morning, in this diner, encountered something that made the protocol feel true. He doesn't say anything else. There isn't anything to say. He nods. Dorothy Jean Calloway looks at him for a moment, and there is something in her expression that is not a smile exactly, but is close enough to one that it counts. She turns and pushes through the door and walks out into the morning. The flag is at half-mast. The sky is wide and pale and cold, the way October skies are in this part of the country, and her footsteps are quiet on the asphalt. She walks toward the VFW hall 3 blocks away. The box is under her arm. She thinks about Tommy eating terrible pancakes at a truck stop outside Raleigh. She thinks about the specific texture of silence after a fire mission, and how she learned, slowly, to stop mistaking it for peace, and how she found something better to call it. Not peace exactly, but the thing you find on the other side of peace, where you know the cost, and you pay it, and you carry it, and you find a way to set it on a counter in a diner on a Friday morning and let the room see it finally, because some things are not meant to stay in a drawer forever. She is 63 years old. She is 5'4" on a good day. Her granddaughter believes she can fix anything. She walks into the VFW hall and finds a seat in the 3rd row and sets the navy blue box on the seat beside her. For Tommy. At 10:03, 6 officers in dress uniform file in through the side door and take the row behind her. She hears them settle. She feels the particular quality of their stillness. She does not turn around. She doesn't need to. The ceremony begins with a trumpet and a flag and a name spoken into a microphone by a man who knew Tommy for 30 years and is only now running out of words for him. Dorothy holds the box in both hands. The brass latch catches the light from the windows on the left side of the hall, the same light that came through the diner's plate glass this morning when the day was still blue-gray and the first truck hadn't pulled in yet. The box makes no sound now. She is holding it too carefully for that, but she hears it anyway. That soft knock of old wood on older laminate, the sound it made this morning when she set it down, the sound that started all of this. She hears it the way you hear things that have been with you so long, they have become part of your own silence. She brought it here to let Tommy know. She's done putting it away. If there is someone in your life who carries something quiet, a weight they've never named, a service they've never mentioned, a box they keep under the winter sweaters, share this story with them tonight. Some things have been carried alone long enough. Subscribe so the next story finds you, and remember, the most decorated people in any room are often the ones who never told you what they earned. This story is a work of fiction created as a tribute to